Go on, far away.
All right, no problem. I'll start recording this, and then so we'll talk about it later. So basically, I'm really grateful for you sort of jumping on this call with me, because I've only been teaching for 2 years, so I'm new to it all. I'm getting my head around it, and my experience at college wasn't great, and at the time I didn't know any different, because I thought, well, I'm at college, so this must be the level that everyone's working at, and that's it. There's no, someone must be checking up on this and making sure I'm getting a good education.
You'd assume so.
Yeah, and it's only now that I've left that you start to look back and think, hang on a minute, that wasn't great, I'm getting to grips with it now, and what I want to help people do is avoid what I went through, and understand that the requirements and what there is available. And from our chats together, it sounds like you've had quite a journey.
Yeah, it's been yeah. I've had quite a journey. Yeah, of course.
Because you might be what we call a like a career changer. Is that right?
Yeah. So I changed. I was obviously in Brighton. 2015, I think I moved back to London, sort of working in the music industry.
Yeah.
And then moved up to London and started labouring. That was, I was labouring for a good 2 years before I even thought about becoming an electrician. And then it was my sister's husband at the time, who was a Sparks, and he was like, look, you should jump on this. It's, there's so many people, so many people here that have done it, you might as well do it as well. So started from there. Yeah.
So that's how you got into it then. How long ago was that?
Well, I'd say all in all, it's probably been about 5 years. I mean, obviously I was doing the labouring for 2 years, and then I started my Sitting Guilds level 2, and then went on to my level 3. When I started the level 3, I started working. There was a tutor at our college who started, I think he left the college, went to work for an outside company, but then came back and was like, I actually want to hire some people from the college as not apprentices, but just mates, basically.
Yeah.
So I want to take some of the top learners from the college course and take them over to this company so they can become mates, basically. So he gave us, obviously at that time, no one would really give anyone a chance, really, because you've got no qualifications. You're just a labourer. You could maybe get, I think I was working for one electrical firm, but they were doing big high-end projects in central London, and I would, I'd get some electrical job, like sort of digging trenches for cables in big mansions and stuff like that, and doing real low-level crappy work. But yeah, until he sort of gave me the option to go to that was a company in North London, and we were doing remedials, basically going around doing periodics and the ICRs. I was going around with Sparks, helping them, just watching them do testing and whatnot, and then helping them out doing remedials, or just swapping over accessories, changing light switches, like for like plug sockets and bits and bobs like that. So that's where it started from, really.
Yeah, it's taken you 5 years to get to this point. I mean, this is one of the things that I'm trying to get to the bottom of as well. There's a few things that you've said there. Number one is obviously how long it took. Okay. Because one of my bugbears in the industry is that obviously you've gone down the proper apprenticeship sort of channel, the diploma route, but then you do the portfolio, afterwards, and then you get employed, and then you do the AM2, which you've just completed, which we'll get on to as well. And all in all, that's taken you about 5 years. But then there's obviously this backdoor route in where people could do a 3-week training course and then go out and call themselves electricians, which, it's not the same level, but you can see why they do it. Because obviously, if someone said to you, it's going to take this long, it's going to cost this amount of money, you're going to struggle to get jobs, you're going to go through all those problems that you've gone through, or you could have this 3-week course and then be up and running in 3 weeks. You would go, oh, okay, I'll take the 3-week course then.
Level, I mean, the tutors there were they were okay. Some of them were pretty shoddy. So when I went back for level 3, we probably got taught for about half the year. So I actually ended up getting reimbursed for half the year, the cost of half the year back. So which was just shoddy, really. But
how much did it cost you?
I think by that time, I can't. All in all, probably maybe 8-9 grand, I think, to date.
Right. Okay.
9 grand a day, which is, isn't cheap, really, when you
No,
think
no.
about
I
it.
mean,
But
this is the thing, and this is one of the things that I want to talk about in these videos. Is that at the moment there's kind of three routes into the industry. So the two I want to promote are the diploma route, which is what you did. You do your time at college, and then you leave there, then you get employed, build your portfolio, then you do your AM2. And you're saying that route costs about £8,000 or £9,000.
yeah,
The apprenticeship route, which is 3 years, but during that time you build your portfolio. It's all paid for you, and you do your AM2 when you finish. Okay, that's a 3-year course, and that doesn't cost you a penny if you're under 19, I think. And also, I'm still getting these numbers together. I'm going to have another video with somebody that knows more about it than me. But the government are now funding employers more. About 3 years ago, you used to have to pay for the whole apprenticeship if you were over 19, I think it was, something like that. Whereas now, your employer only pays 5%. So on a course that's, I can't remember what those figures were now, but basically it worked out to be about 800 quid or something for 3 years at college, 800 or 900 quid, 3 years at college. I mean, that's the cost of the AM2, So it pays to get an apprenticeship in reality, because again, the other problem is with the diploma route, which is what I did as well, is that you struggle to get employed. People, you come out of that after 3 years of training and you get this qualification that says you're now an electrician, but then you try to go and get a job and they say, well, what experience have you got? Well, I've just done the diploma route. Well, you're starting from scratch. You've got to start right off at the bottom again. And that's not viable for somebody who's got bills to pay, maybe kids to look after, because I think you said something about kids, got kids to look after, you've got bills to pay, roof over your head, transport, to get around. It's not a viable option, is it, really?
Yeah. No, not at all.
No. So, I mean, that £8,000 or £9,000, Paul, was that purely the training, the college?
Yeah, pretty much everything. I think the level 2 was probably about £1.5 grand. Level 3 was three grand. MVQ is what I think I paid £1,700, £1,900 to get the write-ups done for me.
Yeah.
And AM2 on top of that. I had quite a little bit of private tutoring in there as well because of the lack of teaching in the level 3. I actually got, but yeah, I mean, I thought that was the only way at the time. If someone had come to me when I'd started out and said, "Oh, look, there's a quick way that you can get in," I think in hindsight, I'm actually quite glad someone didn't say that to me, because I think we would have taken that route.
Yeah.
And then ended up halfway down the line going, "Oh crap, it don't mean anything. It doesn't
mean anything." But again, this is the other problem that I want to talk about, because there's other people that I want to do videos with.
The paper that it's written on.
Yeah, but that's another thing. There's other people that I've spoken to that have done the quick route, realised what they don't know, realised that it doesn't make them an electrician, and then they've tried to then sort of backtrack and pay for more training, and they're at about 8 or 9 grand, and they're still not qualified. Okay. So the AM2 is obviously about 900 quid, is that right?
Yeah, I paid £900. Yeah, well, £900, then I had a refit, £200 for the fault finding. So yeah, about £900, £1,100.
Yeah. And just for my own personal benefit, did any of my videos actually help, Paul?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, mate. Yeah, of course. I mean, I watched so many. I watched yours. I watched the GSH ones. I watched John Ward.
Yeah.
And then just read the guidance note 3. Tried to read the 18th at the time. Didn't really go too much into that. But yeah, just the on-site guidance note 3, your videos, and the other ones that I mentioned. Yeah. But,
no, that's good. I mean, there's so much free CPD out there now to watch and get up to speed, isn't it? I mean, people don't really have an excuse anymore for not doing it.
Yeah.
So with your MVQ, because I don't know if you know from watching my videos, Paul. I mean, it turns out I'm not actually qualified after my college screwed it up.
I heard.
Yeah, because there's a big, obviously, problem with loads of people, and it still goes on today, where they do the course, but they don't actually get the final certificate. You know, the college mess it up somehow, and they're not actually qualified. So that's what happened to me. So I'm actually in the position where I might have to do the AM2 route, the AM2E route, the experienced worker route, and I've got to build a portfolio. So yours cost about £1,700, was it?
Yeah, £1,700. That was including them doing the write-up for me.
Okay. And then when I mean, how does it work? Do you have to send in photos and then email in what, you type it out or write it out and send them stuff, or do they do it over the phone, or is it a combination?
No, I just literally, all I did for my one, I just uploaded photos. That was all I done. And then we've done a couple of professional discussions and remote observations.
Yeah.
I've done one remote observation where I think I went around to my parents' house and I wired in an outside supply to their shed, put a little DB in there, isolator inside the house, and then just wired some sockets in there with some PVC conduit into a couple of double sockets, a few spurner light switch with a light. So I covered quite a few bits in there that I wasn't getting done on site at that time.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing with the MVQ is it's such a wealth of stuff that you need to get done. Like all the metal containment and stuff like that. I wasn't really on it. I wasn't geared up to doing that. We were doing high-end residential properties. We weren't doing metal conduit or trunking, or there was a little bit of trunking going in around like the DBs and the Lutron panels and bits and bobs like that. But regarding metal conduit, that took a long time to get to. I sort of had to leave that company to go to an agency and then go, I think I got to Brentford Football Stadium, and I'd done an awful lot of conduit and containment there. But personally, that's why it's taken me so long, because it was such a wealth of stuff that you need to do on there. And I was just, the assessor I had for the MVQ, he wasn't, he was just like, oh, just get on and do it. Just get on and do it. Or just get it and just do it at home or something like that. And I was like, well, do I have to get a blender and stuff and do it from home? How do I learn that? How do I do it? And I really struggled with my conduit and my sets and stuff like that. So I needed to go onto a site to sort of learn that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the temptation is for the assessors, because obviously all they want is a picture. They just want you to stand by some conduit and say you did that.
Yeah. Well, they want to see varying degrees of it. They want to see you measuring it. They want to see you measuring the points of the set, and they want to see you bending it. They want to see the finished set. Then they want to see you putting a bush on it, or a couple or whatnot, and then fixing it up to the wall. They want every single stage of what you're doing, which is crazy, really, because there's other people out there who will go around site and they'll be like, "Oh, mate, do you mind if I just nick a bit of your conduit and just take a picture?" There are people like that out there doing that. They won't do any of the work themselves, but they'll go around and just pick up bits of conduit from here and there and just make it look like they're doing this and that.
Well, this is one of the downfalls to the MVQ, if I'm honest with you, is that you're kind of trusted that what is there is real. I mean,
how can you prove it?
You raise an interesting point, because a lot of people have said that the MVQ might not be relevant to the work that they're doing. So, for instance, if they purely do domestic work and they're on an apprenticeship for them, but they've got to comply with, I think you need to install SWA, SY cable, singles, metal conduit, plastic conduit, trunking, tray or basket. There's about 8 or 9 things. And out of that, you've got to select 4 of them and do a write-up on those 4, something like that. I mean, I've got the MVQ here. It pretty much is. Let me just have a look.
I mean, I'm so glad I didn't have to do the write-ups. I heard some people who've done the write-ups, and they found that even harder than the work itself that they never got to do because they were doing one particular type of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, do you know, now that
it is what it is at the end of the day. It is what it is. That's what's needed to do. I didn't know any different than that. I was just told that's what you got to do. So I just cracked on and done it. And that's why personally it took me so long. I mean, luckily, due to COVID, I managed to do a lot of the testing and fault finding as written. Like my assessor was like, oh, because of COVID, because you're not working, I was a high risk patient. I'm a high risk patient, so I was off work due to my health at the time. So I was like, well, I'm coming to the end of my MVQ now. I'm getting really worried. I'm not going to get all this testing and fault finding done. And he was like, well, to be honest, you can just write that up, and we can do a professional discussion about that. Just as long as you talk me through those faults and like the testing procedures. As long as you can prove that you know that what you're talking about, then we'll sign those last bits off. But luckily, I got those bits signed off.
Yeah.
But that's not the case for other people. You know, that's just COVID that helped me do that, really.
Well, because now that I'm faced with doing my MVQ, I mean, I've got two choices. I can either do it myself, and I quite like the fact that if I do it myself, it's my work, and obviously I think. See, I put a lot of emphasis on being able to do this, because I think if you can talk the talk as well as walk the walk, then you're at a higher level than not. And obviously, the more experience you get, Paul, you'll get there. You will get there. So, but I could easily pay the 1,700 quid, get someone else to do it for me. Job done. So there are going to be lazy people out there that can't be asked to do it. But what I'm going to do to try and help people, because again, there's not a lot of support for the MVQ. So I'm going to put some videos together of me completing mine. And I've made some templates as well to kind of help people fill it out, not by telling them how to do it, but putting it in a step-by-step guide. And I'm going to put that on the internet to help people, for free. But I've just opened this up now.
Yeah, good idea.
So the range you need, there's singles, multi-core, twin and earth, mineral insulated, FP200, obviously, or a 5 performance cable, SWA, SY, and data. So that's the second fixing. And then on the 109, which is the first fixing, you've got PVC conduit, metal conduit, PVC trunking, metal trunking, cable tray, basket, ladder, ducting, modular wiring system or bus bar systems, and power track. If you're not getting all that,
it makes me laugh because there's so much that needs to be done. So much there.
I think, again, I don't know for sure.
Daunting as well. That really is quite daunting.
It really is. I don't know for sure, but, again, I've only been doing this 2 years, but when I read into it now, I've tried to read everything that we've got to teach, read into the specification that we've got to teach, and I've read into the syllabus, and I've read through lots of books. And having, done the first year a few times now, I get the feeling that the qualification is written for big ECA companies, big employers, okay? Yeah. Because when you do like the 105 unit, if you're on the 2365, I don't know what that is, but there's a bit about roles and responsibilities, where to store materials, how to deal with customers, architects, all that kind of stuff, all the people on site that you might come across.
Yeah.
And when you go through that, most of these guys don't even see that. All they see is the one guy they work with and the customer. They don't see all that. So they really struggle to picture what's going on. So what I say to them, look, imagine you work for a big ECA company. Okay, there's all these people above you and you're at the bottom of the food chain. What they want you to know is that you know the pecking order so that you don't stuff up and cost them money, basically. But also as well, from the MVQ point of view, the only people that are going to be able to complete all of that are people working for these big companies that are moving around, and got lots of different materials to work with. The average guy now, who probably is on the domestic environment, won't see any of that. You might see a bit of trunking, plastic or metal. Yeah. You might see a tiny bit of conduit if you're lucky, but most of it's just going to be twin and earth.
Yeah.
So, it needs to be, something needs to be done to, divvy it up a bit. There has been talk about having a domestic electrician, whatever that involves, okay, and a commercial industrial electrician. But again, I can see a lot of problems where that arises, because again, they could dumb the domestic down, even though, in my opinion, domestic really has got quite complicated over the last few years, with everything connect up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I do little bits of private, and I'm still every sort of private job I do is always a learning curve. You think you do one job and you're like, oh, that's difficult, and I've sort of accomplished that. I've got around that, and then you go to another place, and you're like back to square one again. It's just like, yeah, the learning curve we're so steep, I think, in domestic.
Yeah.
I think the learning curve, just as an electrician, I mean, a lot of people have said to me, you know, even though you get your gold card, you're still learning. You're not an electrician.
Yeah.
Some people think, oh, you get your gold card, that's it, you're an electrician. You can start earning big bucks. But yeah, you can start earning big bucks, but you could get sent to one site or one job, or it could be anything, and you're starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
There's so much I still haven't done. I speak to friends of mine who are doing big industrial stuff in the city, and they're doing jobs I've never even touched on.
Yeah.
You know, like I've not done big armours or anything like that. Some of the jobs, you know, big armours, big boards and stuff. I've not done anything like that.
Well, this is where experience comes in, isn't it? Because I think the more that you do it, the more knowledge you get. You get something that I like to, you know, sort of describe as engineering judgment to my apprentices. Use your engineering judgment, and that's what it is. It's being able to look at whatever you've got in front of you and know from previous experience what you can and can't do. And if you're not quite sure, knowing where to look, so looking in the regs book or manufacturer's instructions or anything like that, you know, to then tie in the loose data and then make it work to a safe standard. So yeah, no, that's all good. So Paul, you passed your AM2. Congratulations.
Yeah, finally. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, what was it like as an experience for you?
Say again?
What was that like as an experience for you?
Say it one more time, Adrian.
Oh no. So what was the AM2 like experience?
As an experience, I mean, it was a good experience. It was very stressful for me when I don't handle amazingly well under stress. But I think my assessor saw that. So on the day, I mean, they're very understanding in there. That I will give them that. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to prove your competence. But if they see that you're, I mean, he saw that I was nervous, but at the same time, he saw that I knew what I was doing at the end of the day. So, yeah, I mean, it was a struggle. I prepared for it, and I just went in there, smashed out the work. The first day was a lot easier than I thought it was. The S-plan, the DOL, I thought it was going to be a lot more difficult than that, but I'd say that was probably easier than the intermediate and two-way lighting. Personally, it was, the S-plan is literally, you're just joining the dots. Just as long as you follow that wiring diagram, it will be really difficult to actually mess that one up. And the same as a DOL, it's literally, it's just point to point, point to point, point to point. Yeah. You're not doing any of the, unless you're doing the AM2S, you're not doing any conduit, you're not doing any trunking, you're not doing any containment. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was good. Like, the part for me was the fault finding bit, which was the side of work that I never experienced on site, really, apart from when I first got hired as a mate, which I'd done a little bit of fault finding then, but that was so long ago before I'd done the AM2 that I just forgot all that stuff. Well, not forgot about it, but just hadn't done that practice, you know? Yeah.
Well, I find with the fault finding, you need experience with that. You know, you need to have been doing testing. So there's a couple of, you know, employers that I've spoken to where they say, do you know what, when it comes up to the AM2, our guys, if they haven't done much testing and they ask us, we need to do some testing, they stick them with testing for 3 months, testing.
Yeah, that would help.
When you're testing for 3 months, you're also then coming across faults. So then you're doing fault finding. You know, if all you get is new work all the time, you're not going to get much in the way of fault finding, are you?
Not really, not really. I mean, I think the one thing that you sort of mentioned to me a while ago as well was, with fault finding, just look at your testing and the results that you would expect to get from your testing. Basically, that's the one thing that sort of clicked for me.
Yeah.
And when I went back to do my resit, what other clicked for me then as well was, I was expecting to have an MFT for that, to do insulation resistance and the continuity, the actual reason. So I studied myself. I had a bell tester, and he was like, "No, that's all you got." And I was like, "Oh crap!" So that sort of got me thinking another one. I'm like, well, I do know this is relatively simple. It's just, you're just testing, and you know, you follow the procedure, And if you don't get something from that, you know what it's going to be, basically. So that helped a lot.
Well, there's a couple of things as well in with that as well that you've just mentioned. Is that number one? I mean, using a continuity tester for faults is very basic in my humble opinion. I think, you know, a multi-function tester gives you more feedback. You're seeing results, and you're seeing either high or low, and everything in between. You're getting more feedback from that.
Yeah, it would certainly help you.
Yeah.
But the assessor on the day, he was like, "Look, mate, if you can prove your competence of this, you can do it on anything. Doesn't matter whether or not you can do it on this or you can do it on that. If you learn on something crap, then by the time you get on site and you use an MFT, then you'll be able to breeze it, basically. But if you can prove your competence that you can do it, it shouldn't matter what bit of equipment you use, really. That is a bit of a bastard way of doing it.
Well, to be fair, I don't actually agree with what he's saying, if I'm honest with you, in as much as that, you know, if you've got high resistance fault, so in parallel, so you're doing insulation resistance testing, let's say it's between live and neutral, and you've got a high resistance fault, so your continuity tester won't pick it up, then surely you need a tester to be able to find out those megohms, you know?
Well, that's what I said to him initially, but he was like, "Oh, don't worry, Paul. The only faults you've got here are short circuits and open circuits." I was like, "What? Hold on. So, what the hell? Like, do you know what I mean?"
Yeah.
But,
I guess it is tough for them. It is tough because obviously it's not a real plate, not a real installation, is it? It's a manufactured fault. So there's only so much you can do with that, I guess.
Yeah, they switch them all in, don't they? Yeah, they switch them all in. But I think the fact that he was, like, "Oh no, you're not going to get all these faults that you've studied for." He's actually told me what faults I was going to get. I was like, "Oh right, well that helps me even more then." So it sort of defeats the point of even doing the whole thing. It's, you know,
one of the things that came off the back of our conversation about what type of testers, could you remember I put out that post, you know, what testers are people using for the AM2? And there was a huge spectrum of stuff that came back. Some centres used just a multi-function tester, some used a continuity tester, belling it out, some used a multi-function tester, and there seemed to be no set thing. So I actually asked Net about that, and they said, well, it's up to the centre. One of the things that I then took away from that and asked them was, can the apprentice bring in their own testers? Because I can't see a problem with that. And they weren't keen on that. They said, no, they've got to use whatever the centre provides. But I mean, I personally think that an apprentice should be able to bring in their equipment and use their equipment for testing. Because again, that'll save Net loads of money on having equipment around that gets damaged or ruined. But then also it will put people at ease because they know what they've got on the day to work with. You know, so I think a few questions around that, a few things that maybe Net look at. You there, Paul?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, mate, I'm here. Go on.
No, I lost you a bit. Then you were saying something.
Because if you're used to, if say you work for a company and they actually gear you up, like you say, they give you 3 months of testing and you're using an MFT. But you're getting used to that, and then you go to your AM2 and they give you a bell tester. Then it's sort of, you've been preparing for that, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one again almost. Do you know what I mean? So it would make sense if you could bring in your own testers, but then it would make more sense if they just had a bit of continuity across all centres. If they all just decided to use one, whereas it's all over the place, it just confuses people, I think.
Yeah, well, again, I completely agree with that, because from my point of view, as someone that then, you know, is teaching my apprentices to, you know, get through the AM2, and I say to them, well, do you know what, use a continuity tester. This is what they use, and then they get there and they're not given a continuity tester, then they're screwed, you know. Yeah. So, and likewise, if I say don't use a continuity tester, because any electrician in the real world is probably going to use a multi-function tester for anything other than continuity. You know, if you're doing installation resistance, that's what you would use. Stick with that, and they get there, and all there is a bell tester. Again, that's going to confuse them. So I do think that Net needs to say specifically, you know, for instance, they could put in their specification fault finding. for this test, for these tests, all you will need is a continuity tester, and with that continuity tester, you'll be able to, you know, find all these tests.
Yeah.
And then that way, everyone knows what the objective is and what the parameters are, and then they can work to that. I think Net need to, you know, close that down a bit more. I think it's a bit too open for my liking, open to each centre's interpretation of that. So I will mention that. I'll pass that forward because I think that's a good point. So we've been talking for a while, Paul. I mean, I don't want this video to go on for too long because obviously, you know, people won't watch it and that stuff. So is there any advice out there that you would give to other people in your situation, maybe at the start of the course when they're choosing?
Work. Don't underestimate how much study you need to put into it. The more work you put into it at the beginning, the easier it will be and the outcome. The easier it will be once you come down to that AM2 and that MVQ. Get those pictures taken as soon as possible. There's some people saying that. I've been reading some posts earlier on yesterday, how you can't take pictures from a certain year or something like that, or you've got to wait until you're with an employer that you're actually employed with. That's all nonsense from day one. As soon as you get that experience hands-on, get in there. You can't get, and if you can't find a job as a mate, start as an electrical labourer, or start as a labourer. Go around to the companies on site and speak to those firms. And there are avenues to go in there. Don't give up at the easiest hurdle. Persistence is key.
Again, would you suggest that people do the apprenticeship route rather than a diploma route?
I don't know if you can afford it. I think at our age, if you have a family, then it's difficult to take an apprenticeship on, because then you're on basic pay. You're on real basic pay. I've got someone I speak to up in Scotland. I won't mention his name. Someone I speak to up in Scotland. Luckily, his wife can afford for him to take that low wage. You know, so he's doing the apprenticeship. But I think I would have loved to take the apprenticeship, but on that wage, I just can't support a family like that.
No, it's true.
I need that day rate. I need that day rate. I can't be doing. I mean, I know 16, 17-year-olds that are struggling on £70 a week as an apprenticeship. You know, and I tell them, oh, just knuckle down, just keep on with it. It is worth it. You know, but it is really difficult. Really, it is really difficult. As a further education, as an adult, they're asking a lot of people to go down that apprenticeship route. Really. I'm just typing it now. So it's £4.15 an hour. It's shocking
for the first year. So if you times that by 30 hours, that's £124.50 a week. So you know, times that by people, it's £500 a month.
Yeah, that's not even real. I know people on site. There was people I've been working on my last job, and they were on 70 quid a week as apprentices, 17, 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
You know, that's not going to help them, especially when in this day and age when you can go out and you can make on the street, you know, there's temptations out there to do other things.
Yeah.
You know, some of these kids are really struggling with stuff like that. You know, they want to get into a trade, they want to get into a career. The money just isn't really doing it for some people, I don't think.
No, because I know, obviously, I'll just work that out. They should be, as a minimum wage, they should be getting £4.15 as a first-year apprentice. So if they're not getting that, their employer may be not doing things quite the way they should be. But then in the second year, that goes up to minimum wage. So if you're over 19, I think it is, you get £8.40 an hour in the second year, which makes it a bit more achievable, doesn't it? I think at the moment as well, you know, thinking this through, at the moment, the incentive is for the employer. So at the moment, employers can get, I think, about £3,000 to take on an apprentice through the government. What they should do is give that to career changers, okay, to help boost their pay for that first year, you know, because an employer, I mean, again, there needs to be some incentive for employers, because for the first 3 months of your career, you'll be absolutely useless. You know, you're just pushing the broom around and making teas. And I get that. You know, I've taken on apprentices, and you get some that hit the ground running and they want to get on, they're keen, and they make it work. And you get others that it takes time, you know, repetition for it to sink in. So again, there has to be something in it for the employer. But I think moving forward, the government needs to support career changers more. And whether that's helping them with the minimum wage over that first year till they get into the second year to make it a more viable option, or paying the course fees or something like that, more needs to be done, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's something we can work on. And again, that's the whole reason for these videos. The whole reason for these videos. So, Paul, I really appreciate you turning up. I mean, is there anything that you want to ask me before we go?
No, all good. All good.
No problem. Well, Paul, as always, I mean, if you've ever got any questions or you need any help or support, you know where to find me, and I'll do my best to answer it. I've seen, obviously, that you're around on social media, so that's good. You're keeping your finger on the pulse.
Yeah. My head's out there. I'm out there at the moment. I've got my 18th, doing my 18th course this week and next week with old Sparky Ninja.
Good.
So just got my head down studying this weekend.
Yeah, well, he's put an amazing resource online, hasn't he, for free?
He is, yeah. He's a good guy. Good guy.
Lovely guy. Absolutely special. I mean, the Sparky Ninja in the E5 group is what has inspired me to do more outside of my, bubble, basically, and help other people. So, I'm really indebted to those guys. All good things.
Yeah, man, they do a lot. They do a lot of work out there.
They do indeed. Right, Paul, on that note then, you take care of yourself and speak soon.
Take care.
Take care.